Of course, this is not financial advice and for entertainment purposes only. Investors, yes, we're going to be going over the price targets for 3 dividend ETFs or high dividend ETFs, if you will, like SCHD, Charles Schwab's US Dividend Equity ETF, and then ULTY, which is the YieldMax's Ultra Option Income Strategy ETF, and then QQQI by NEOS, which is their high income NASDAQ 100 ETF. Everybody loves dividends, hopefully, for passive income and whatnot, because it's been interesting to see how these funds have been performing in 2025, like SCHD, which has been pretty flat this year. ULTY has been pretty good from a total return standpoint, but not from a share price standpoint from NAV erosion. And then QQQI by NEOS has been performing pretty well on both the share price as well as the total return as well. Before we get started, once again, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Do your own research, and as well as these price targets are going to be from analysts from TipRanks. So let's see how accurate they're going to be, because they could be right, they could be wrong, they could be super wrong, who knows? And also take into account that these are share price predictions, and also these do not include dividends, which will be a good factor for the total return of these funds. So let's see how ULTYs and even SCHD and even QQQI will perform in 2026. Alright guys, so we have ULTY's ETF forecast and price targets, as well as ULTY's analyst ratings on TipRanks. So right now ULTY is rated a moderate buy, with 14 rating it a buy and 11 a hold and 0 a sell from Wall Street analysts on TipRanks. Now, ULTY's 12-month forecast into 2026 has an average price target of $5.59, which will then represent 12.21% upside in ULTY, and then the highest price target is $8.03, and then the lowest price target is $3.64. Alright guys, so let's see what ULTY's price target is going to be in 2026, just my own opinion. So the highest price target of about $8 is going to be out of reach, just in my own opinion. And then the average price target of about $5.50 is once again going to be out of reach. I think that the lowest price target could be a more accurate prediction for ULTY's price target for next year of $3.64, because ULTY pays super high income, super high distributions. It can't hold up that stable share price without going down in share price, because dividends are no free lunch. There's no free lunch in dividends in cover call ETFs and whatnot. So the lowest price target is the most accurate in my opinion. Now that would then represent a negative 26.9% downside in ULTY share price, where the total return, so once again, this is only the share price, not the dividends included, could be positive, and it also could be negative depending on the market environment. But we have seen ULTY go down in share price and then provide positive total returns with dividends included. So who knows, maybe ULTY has a positive return or a negative return, but we'll see in the future. On TipRanks, ULTY has an ETF Smart Score, which is rated at a 6 or a neutral, so investors aren't too bullish on ULTY nor too bearish, which I'd say is a pretty good thing. Now the analyst consensus is a moderate buy once again, and the blogger sentiment, so people writing articles on ULTY, is neutral, which I'd say is a positive once again, and the crowd wisdom for ULTY is positive, which I'd say is good, because you want investors to be positive on your ETF, whether it's ULTY, whether it's SCHD, VOO, I don't care. So that's good that the overall crowd wisdom is positive for ULTY heading into hopefully a strong 2026. Here's some more data about ULTY. Now, investors who are under 35 years old on TipRanks have the most holdings in ULTY. So these investors who are under 35 years old hold the most of ULTY at 51%, which I'd say is super cool. And then the investors between age 35 and 55 hold about 24% of all of ULTY on TipRanks. And then investors over 55 years old hold the least amount of ULTY at 23.9% of all the investors on TipRanks, which I'd say is pretty interesting. Now, 0.5% of all portfolios on TipRanks hold ULTY, where on average investors allocate 8.06% of their portfolios to ULTY. So a lot of younger investors invest in ULTY, which I'd say is super interesting because I prefer younger investors to have growth versus income, which is going to be okay. But younger investors do tend to like ULTY, even investors who are also in their middle age and even their older years as well. Next up is SCHD's ETF forecast and price targets and SCHD's analyst ratings. So right now, analysts on TipRanks rate SCHD a moderate buy, where 56 analysts rate SCHD a buy, 40 a hold, and then 5 a sell. So that's pretty good for SCHD right now. And then in the next 12 months in 2026, SCHD has an average price target of $30.49, which would then represent 12.82% upside in this fund, where the highest price target is $36.29, and then the lowest price target is $25.53. Once again, guys, this is my own opinion on SCHD's price target. So the highest price target, I would say, is way too bullish on this fund. So I'd say that this fund is not going to have the highest price target achieved next year, but I'd say that the lowest price target as well is out of reach and way too bearish on this fund. Now, I'd say that the average price target is a good price target of $30.49, which would then represent 12.8% upside in SCHD, but that does not include the dividends or the distributions. Well, this is actually a dividend. So a dividend of, on average, I'd say is going to be 3.6%, where that's the average yield from SCHD in my opinion. So then SCHD could have a 16.4% upside next year in 2026, which would be super cool because of the rate environment and hopefully maybe a rotation from technology stocks to value stocks in this fund. So we'll see if this happens, but hopefully we could see a solid upside next year for SCHD. Up next is SCHD's ETF Smart Score, which is a 7 or neutral. And then the analyst consensus is a moderate buy once again, where the blogger sentiment is neutral. But the thing that jumps out to me is that the crowd wisdom is very negative. So many investors are negative on this fund, probably because of its bad performance or flat performance this year, where the market has been going up, ULTY has been going up in terms of total returns. Other funds like DGRO, VIG, VOO, anything that isn't SCHD probably went up this year, and investors are super negative, bearish on this fund, which I'd say is called for, but we could see a resurgence in this fund, hopefully. But so many investors are negative on this fund, which I'd say is crazy. Here are some more fun facts about SCHD. So investors who hold the most of this fund are between ages 35 years old and 55 years old, which represents about 52% of the holders on TipRanks, where the next top holders are investors over 55 years old, and then the investors under 35 years old hold the least amount of this fund, which I'd say is a pretty good thing because you want, in my opinion, growth versus high dividends for the best chance of having the best total returns. But if you love dividends, then SCHD could be for you. Now, on the bright side though, investors who are younger, under 35 years old, have been adding more to this fund in their portfolios, and also 2.6% of all portfolios on TipRanks hold SCHD, where on average investors allocate about 7.42% of their portfolios to this fund of SCHD. Next up, we have QQQI's ETF forecast and price targets, and even QQQI's analyst ratings. So investors rate on TipRanks, analysts rate it a moderate buy, where 91 of these analysts rate QQQI a buy and 13 a hold, and then 0 a sell. Now, the average price target for QQQI next year, in the next 12 months in 2026, is going to be $62.19, which would then represent 14.21% upside in this fund, where the highest price target is $74.92, and then the lowest price target is $46.20. But I'd say that the highest price target and then the lowest price target are going to be too bullish and too bearish on this fund. The average price target, in my opinion, is going to be just like, why not go with the average price target to not be too bullish or too bearish of $62.19, which would then represent some good upside in this fund, but it could have higher returns potentially depending on the monthly dividends of this fund. But I'd say that this is good for QQQI investors who love growth and income from this fund. Up next, we have QQQI's ETF Smart Score, which is rated an 8 or to outperform, which I'd say is the best out of SCHD and even ULTY, which is great. The crowd wisdom is very positive because investors like this fund because it has growth, it has income, it has monthly dividends, it has tax efficiency, stable distributions, and Neos is a great brand in my opinion for cover calls if you want monthly income, and also analysts do rate it, once again, a moderate buy. Here are some more fun facts about QQQI on tip ranks. So investors over age 55 years old hold the most of QQQI, which I'd say is crazy. So these investors hold the most of QQQI, and then the next cohort to hold QQQI the most is investors between 35 and 55 years old, and then investors under age 35 hold the least amount of QQQI, which is super interesting. 35 and 55 have been buying more of this fund heading into next year, and also the average portfolio size of investors who do hold this fund is 0.6% of all portfolios on tip ranks, where on average, investors allocate 6.46% of their portfolios to QQQI. Now, if you guys like this video, please give it a like because this cute puppy did. Thank you so much for watching, and once again, this is not financial advice. Do your own research. Investing is risky once again, and check out our last video on your screen. I love you guys so much. Crush on the stock market and take it easy. Peace.